Hello everyone and welcome back to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be running you through my tips on how I absolutely boss sales calls that have got me conversion rates upwards of 70% on some weeks and in some months as well. So sit back, relax, grab your pen, grab your paper, and let's get started into today's video. So the 5 things that we're going to be going through today are: number 1, understanding the importance of sales calls. Number 2, understanding what an actual sales call is. Number 3, creating a positive first impression. Number 4, some top tips on what I do to overcome objections. Number 5, effective communication techniques, so techniques that you can go ahead and use in your next sales call. Number 6, closing the deal, because that's the most important thing. And then we're going to conclude the video with a little conclusion and going through all the tips that I've just mentioned in the past. So there you go. If you are looking for specific help on any of those topics, then you can just skip to that section of the video. The video is not going to be too long though, so stay around and let's get straight into it. So sales calls are so important because it turns your traffic that you're generating and your leads into actual money. So it's all good in you saying, oh, okay, I've got 10,000 leads, but what are you actually doing with those leads? What's the point of those leads? As a business owner, the most important part to most businesses is cash, and sales calls generate cash, and usually bigger cash than what a website would generate. So, for example, an agency trying to close a $5,000 deal per month very rarely are going to close that through a website. You're going to need a sales call. You're going to need a longer process. And if you get good at sales calls, then you can maximize your revenue as much as possible. Some key benefits from effective sales calls, like as I was just mentioning then, is you can take a client that would have potentially been willing to spend $300, $400 to a client that's willing to spend $1,000, $2,000. So effectively, you're taking a customer and kind of 3x, 4xing their value sometimes. Now, with my preparation for sales calls, the first thing that I do is it all starts before the call actually even happens. For me, the research and the planning that goes into a sales call is what makes it most effective. If you're hopping on a sales call with a client who actually feels like they've been listened to and feels like they have their needs are being met before the call even starts, then you are straight away, you're off to a winner. And we'll speak about first impressions soon as well. But I like to get as much information as possible out of the client before I start the sales call so I can have a sales call tailored for them. So for example, if a client is looking for SEO and you start talking about Google Ads, that's completely different to what they're looking for. So make sure that you're preparing well for the sales call because your chance of closing from that are 10 times more. Now, speaking of first impressions before, creating a positive first impression is key for you to closing your deals. Now, that is showing up on time, showing up in a place that looks okay. I mean, if you are taking a sales call in bed, I have done it before, don't worry. What I usually do is I put a background. So on Google Meet, you can add a virtual background and it just allows you, so if you are stuck in bed or if you are on the sofa or wherever, it looks like more professional. What I'd also say is either wear, maybe if you have the money for this, wear a company shirt. So I have Atlas shirts for my agency, but obviously if you guys can't afford that or you don't have the infrastructure for that at the moment, then absolutely no issue. What I wear is just a nice shirt or a jumper, just something that's quite approachable and easy to look at. Another side of the first impression is starting the calls. Sometimes when your sales calls start, they can be a little bit awkward. Obviously, two strangers both meeting each other for the first time, it can get a little awkward. So what I usually like to do is ask them where they're from, kind of how the day is going, how the weather is, just icebreakers to get you started in and get you started flowing into the conversation. So say, for example, I would start a conversation with, oh, hey, I'm Thomas, lovely to meet you. I'm from Manchester. The weather's a bit grim today. And it just gets that conversation started. They then might say they're from New York City. Oh, what a wonderful city. and you go in like that. It's basically just to get that conversation flowing and get that conversation starting. My next tip is effective communication skills. Now, effective communication skills are going to take time. I myself am not a good speaker. I try as hard as possible to get as much content as possible out there on my YouTube videos and things like that, but I'm not necessarily a very good talker. There's lots of ums, lots of ahs, lots of likes, but effective communication techniques you don't have to be a public speaker to have effective communication techniques. Some things that I like to use are just actively listening and noting down everything that they're saying, so you can reference back. Not only does this make your sales call more effective, but the client actually feels like they're being listened to, and therefore are more likely, because if you can listen to them in a sales call where you're not getting paid, imagine what you're going to do when you're getting paid for them. The sales call is all about making their client part with their money for your services. And people don't part with their money easily, so you need to convince them to part with their money. Communicating effectively, though, especially if you're not natural at communication, is all about that research and planning that we spoke about before. If you can research and plan and have all these notes, you can communicate persuasively and clearly the points that you're trying to get across. Next key tip for bossing your sales calls is to handle objections. And objections are one of the most common downfalls of sales calls. Like, you're always going to get objections, whether it is, oh, I need my business partner, I need my wife on the call, or whether it's too much money at the moment. And if they're either of those things, that is, for me, lack of preparation. So when people book a call with me, I always ask, do you have a wife or a business partner that needs to be on the call? And if they say no, then you know, and then if they then bring it up in the conversation, it's very clear that they are just not interested in the product, and you've not done a good enough job on selling them on that sales call. For me, I'm not a big believer in you have to close them on the call, but what I am a big believer in is having a follow-up. So if they say, I need some time to think about it, okay, awesome, when can I book you in for a second call? And set a date to allow them to make that decision. So, for example, $2,000 isn't going to be parted ways easily with a company making $10,000 a month. So what I like to do is say, okay, let's schedule a call in for 3 or 4 days, gives them time to think about it, and then if you need to convince them again, you can do so and have that preparation time as well. The majority of the time, your objections are going to be about money. Now, if your objections are about money, you have to do as good of a job as possible to highlight that your services are worth their money. So if you have a lot of objections around, oh, I don't think it's worth the money, you've not done a good enough job on selling them. And if you want a specific video on how to handle objections, I'm more than happy to do that. I touched on the follow-up strategies a little very briefly then. Now, my favorite follow-up strategy, as I mentioned, is the call 4 days down the line. But what about if they don't want that call? I often message them first before the original sales call, send them a message, make sure that they're on, so you're not wasting your time, not wasting 10-15 minutes sat at a laptop that someone's never going to come on. And then after the sales call, I give them a detailed meeting notes of what's happened in the sales call. And again, I've spoke about this previously about taking notes in the call. Makes you feel listened to, makes them feel appreciated as well. So send them the detailed meeting notes. After that, probably 2 to 3 days later, send them a message, say, awesome to chat to you the other day. Are you interested? If they've not converted already, are you interested in hopping on another call to get this over the line? Then you force them to make a decision. And usually, from my experience anyway, that decision is always positive, especially if you've done the steps that I outlined before. And if you are looking for more detailed steps on how to create your very own marketing agency, then I actually have a program built specifically for you. So I offer one-to-one coaching specifically for you. And if you are interested in that, go and message me over on Instagram. It's Thomas Walker MKT. Simple as that. So this has kind of led us to the end of the video. And to summarize everything on how you can boss sales calls, the first thing that you're going to want to do is make a good first impression, whether that's by your settings, whether that's by you have to be on time, and different things like that, as I've mentioned. The next thing that you're going to want to do is prepare and research well. This starts with them booking a call. What information are you taking down? What do you know about your client before you hop on the call with them? The next thing is handling objections. Now, with your objections, it's most likely down to you not getting your point across. That's why they are objecting. The next one is closing the deal. After they've had your objections, how do you actually close the deal? What are your steps and what are your processes to closing your deal? Is it them giving them the credit card details over the phone, or are you sending them a link to pay? Different things like this that you need to think about, so when it comes to the time of closing, you can simply say, yep, this is what you need to do to get us started. And finally, your follow-up strategies. If they don't convert on that first call, what are you doing? How are you accessing these people to get them to convert on a second or a third call? Now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. And as I mentioned, if you send me a message over on Thomas Walker MKT on Instagram, more than happy to take you through some more either real life examples of sales calls. And if you are interested in the program, then don't hesitate to give me a reach out. Just message me with the word sales and I'll get back to every single one of you. Thank you very much for watching today's YouTube video, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.